Alright, folks, I'll try to be quick about this. I don't know about you, but I've had a long weekend, and I need some rest before it starts all over again tomorrow. Um, Wanted to address two things. One, the Apollonian Dionysian explanation in the papers that you guys turned in, and then the other one is the Chapter 11 homework. I graded that, and not a lot of people put questions at the end, but there were a couple of people, and so I just wanted to briefly go through those because I know there's a couple of them that usually throw people. Just make sure we're all on the same page. All right, so I graded the Stranger Than Fiction papers, and I have to say, in general, I thought they were pretty darn good. Better than they usually are, better than my seated class was, so that's saying something. Um, there were only a couple of people who got off on the meaning of Apollonian Dionysian, thinking it was something in the work of art that was Apollonian or Dionysian. Like Harold is all intellectual or brainy, so he's Apollonian, and Maggie Gyllenhaal's character Anna was all she's Dion. That's not what it means. There were a couple of people who did that, and I told you in your comments if you did. Most of you got the idea that Apollonia is when you do the intellectual analysis, where you look at it objectively, and even if you hated it, you can still kind of break down what you thought things meant and along those lines. And then Dionysian is your what it made you feel and why you think that is. So in general, I thought that was good. People were on track with that. The biggest thing is just need to go into much more detail and explanation, not just make an observation about I saw this, but then what does that mean? For example, not a lot of people, I'd say maybe a third wrote about the graphics that are all over the movie, the white where it measurements and writing and numbers and all of that. A few of you wrote about it and hit the nail on the head, I think, is that those graphics show that he lives in his head and he's all intellectual and he can't get out of his own head. Um, I don't, if I'm remembering correctly, I don't think anybody took it to that next step of saying, hey, as the movie went on, they went away. Because he starts living his life and he falls in love with her and he stops living in his own little world of numbers and measurements and he starts living and they go away. And then at the end, when when he decides to go through with her ending, um, they come back again because he steps back into his character and gets back into the number thing. Um, the thing that most people did well with Apollonian was talking about the theme, which I think you'll see all of the themes that we're going to be looking at, except for maybe religion, all through the rest of the semester apply to this: love, death, happiness, morality, religion, well, not religion, but morality, freedom, all of that apply to this. So you can take that for there may be something that has more than one theme, and you may certainly, movies usually do, or books, have more than one thing going on. Acting would be something you could write about, which a lot of you did pretty well. The sets and costumes, some people touched on that fairly well. The different plot lines and how they work together. Um, some people talked a little bit about camera angles. I think that's hard to do unless you're really taking film appreciation and start to really know what all those mean. That's kind of hard to remark on, but that's there. Somebody, now I can't remember who it was a guy, I believe, commented about watching it a couple times and seeing something new. There are so many little tiny things in this movie. Like in the scene where he goes to the first psychologist at work and there's clouds behind him. When he starts to think about Anna, they start to move like a real sky because he's in La La Land. He's dreaming of her. Queen Latifah, in that one scene where they're out in the rain imagining car wrecks, has this giant yellow umbrella. Not an accident. She's the one spot of cheer and happiness in Karen Eiffel's life, and so that umbrella sort of symbolizes her character. I think it's interesting, one of my seated students picked up on this, when he goes into Hilbert's office for the last time, or what he thinks is going to be the last time, and says, hey, it's a comedy, she's in love with me, blah, 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 and then he hears her on the television. She's actually talking about his book 10 years prior, talking about death and taxes, and it's about men's fashion accessories and interconnectivity, which is those different storylines, the little boy and the woman, and how they all come together. I know there's all kinds of things. The thing I saw when I watched it with my seated class right before spring break was one of the times early on when he's brushing his teeth, but after he's met her, it's like counting the strokes, and you can see 21, 22, 23, Anna. And then it goes back to the numbers again or whatever. So there's just lots of little things in there like that. Several of you commented on what's my favorite part too, when he brings her the flowers. And then she's trying to get him to tell her what they are. And he's like, well, this one's barley, and this one's wheat, and this one's, well, I forgot what they are. But he brings her all these flowers to bake with, which I just think is very sweet. I've watched this movie a lot of times. So almost everybody hit on at least some of that. Some of you hit on a lot of it. There were some people who did pretty much plot summary with a paragraph or two about whether you liked it or not at the end. Plot summary is not analysis. Plot summary is just regurgitating what you saw. Analysis is saying, I saw this and here's what I think it meant, or here's what I got out of it. Okay? So in general, you just need to dig deeper, not just say, I noticed this, but I noticed this and why. A lot of you talked about the watch, which is really crucial. And something somebody wrote, and I can't even remember who now, made me think for the first time, hey, the watch does kind of sacrifice itself to save him, which is weird, but anyway. So that was the basics of that. The Dionysian part you guys had, you need to make sure you're saying, you know, this is my Apollonian, this is my Dionysian, because I want to know that you understand what you're doing. The next paper you write, well, the last paper you're going to write, is you're going to pick a piece of art to write about. It could be your favorite movie, a book you really love, a poem, a dance piece, a song, whatever. You can pick what it is, but one thing, and then you're going to write this kind of critique of that thing. So you want to make sure you pick something that there's something there, you know, some substance there to critique. If you have any other questions, let me know. I tried to put a little bit of feedback on everybody's, but a lot of the stuff I just went through, it's really hard to type that over and over 30 times. So that's why I want to do it this way, because I think it's easier to grasp kind of when you can hear it and everything, and I don't have to type the same comments over and over and over and over again. All right, just quickly on the Chapter 11 homework, for the most part, I thought you guys did a good job. Let me just reiterate how I grade homework. If you just answer it with a phrase or, you know, whatever, that's average, that's a C. If you go a little bit beyond and, you know, give a sentence or two, that's a B. It's not about word count, it's about actually explaining things. And then if you go above and beyond and connect your answer to examples or explaining your idea in really great detail, or saying it's like the time so-and-so happened, or connecting it to artwork or whatever, you know, you're really taking that answer and making it full, then to me that's A work. That's going way above and beyond. C is average. That means you did it and it was fine. And I will say, I grade homework a lot of times. I'm looking more for effort and that you tried, especially if there's some, especially like the morality homework. I think this is the hardest chapter in the book. And sometimes it's just hard to grasp it the first time you read it and you haven't had a lecture or anything. So that's why I'm grading more for effort. So it's always better to at least give it a shot than just to go, I got no idea. All right, so I'm just going to briefly go through this whole list and make sure everybody's on the same track. There's about 3 that I think people usually are the 3 that people get off on. The first one's morality of self-interest. It sounds bad because we think if you're interested in yourself, that's bad, which I'm learning that that's not really bad. You got to take care of yourself too before you can take care of anybody else, right? But morality of self-interest is about trying to be the best you can be, working hard. You take care of yourself. It's not about screwing other people out of anything or taking advantage of people or being immoral. It's about your concern is doing well for yourself and your family. And the idea being if everybody does that and, you know, say you invent some great product, well, you're giving jobs to the people who are going to build that product. Now, you got to pay them fair. Doesn't mean you exploit people. But then you're adding to the economy. And if everybody's taking care of themselves and looking out for their own self-interest, then nobody's expecting anybody else to take care of them. Basic idea. Strong moral dictator, that's the one I had a couple emails about. It's in the chapter, but they don't really connect the dots real well. But this is the idea that people are basically immoral.
Connect a lot of ways to do as a sailor.
Sorry. That people are basically can't be good on their own. That humanity is flawed. And what we need is a strong, moral, good dictator to tell us all how to be good. Problem with this one, to me, would be, you ever heard the phrase absolute power corrupts absolutely? They might start out good, but are they going to stay there? Economics and self-interest kind of goes same thing. Altruism, pretty much everybody got this. Looking out for other people before yourself. I would hope that everybody does this at least some point. You've got a kid, you know how it is. But hopefully everybody's helps somebody out every now and then without expecting anything in return. Moral mathematics, this is another one that trips people up. This is, to be my dorky Star Trek watching self, the Vulcans say the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. You look at a situation logically and say, which of these is going to benefit the most people? Which of these is going to have the best impact or whatever? Which is really how we make decisions that way. We go, okay, we could do either one of these things. Which one's going to work out better? Which one's going to benefit more people? That kind of thing. I have a book called The Big Book of Questions, and I usually go through it with some moral questions with my CD class, and one of them is, if there was a machine that could transport people across continents as quickly as across town, but you knew that it was going to kill 100,000 people in its first 5 years of use, would you want it to be approved? And most people say no. I mean, the idea would be that you could go basically teleport or whatever to Paris for lunch and then back to, Broadnax or wherever you live for the rest of the day. And most of my students say, no, it's going to kill that many people. That's horrible. But then the follow-up question is, when the car was invented, if you knew it was going to kill 5 million people over the course of the next 100 years, what would you say? Moral mathematics. It benefits a lot more than it hurts. That's kind of the idea. Moral imperative, this is the idea that we're born knowing right from wrong, that there's something innate in us that tells. Morality of work, that it is moral to go out and work hard and contribute, and even if you hate your job, you still do it the best of your ability. It always makes me think of the show Dirty Jobs. If you've ever watched that, it can be a little disgusting. But that show Dirty Jobs is really, he goes out and does all these terrible jobs like scooping bat guano and, cleaning the sewers and crazy stuff. But somebody's got to do that, and it doesn't mean, those people deserve as much respect for what they're doing as somebody who's playing football for a living or whatever, okay? And then the last one is moral relativism, and I end with this one because I think really, when it comes down to it, this is what we're all doing to some degree or another. Moral relativism says that it depends on the situation, the time period, the culture, whatever. It's that old corny question of, it's wrong to steal, but if your children are starving, is it wrong to steal bread to feed them? Maybe it is, but you're still going to do it. Moral relativism really says you got to take each situation for what it is. And there is no black and white. There is no way to say this is the answer for everybody. And you kind of have to use your best judgment. And I think that's really what we all do, because we have moments where we want to be altruistic. We have moments where we have to be in our own self-interest. We have moments where we function very logically and say, this is going to benefit me more than this, so that's the thing I'm going to do. Or, when you raise kids, you kind of are a strong moral dictator, aren't you? They don't know what the heck they're doing. So you kind of have to say to them, this is the right way to behave. Get on board. I'm the dictator. Can you tell I've just spent 3 days with a 5-year-old who doesn't want to do what I'm telling him to do? Anyway, so my point is, all of these sort of, we go through them at different points in our lives, even in our day. Maybe we might make more than one decision in a day using a different one. So to me, moral relativism is basically what we're living by, at least in America. So I think that probably covers it. If you have any follow-up questions about the Apollonian, Dionysian, about any of the morality, about papers coming up, whatever, just let me know. I'm trying my best to get caught up. I will tell you that Monday through Thursday at lunch is pretty crazy for me, and so I'm finding it very hard to get a lot of grading done in those periods, so I'm going to try to start working a little more in there. Just a couple of school-related things. Advising for the spring, this is the spring, for the summer and fall starts the first week of April. So if you're taking summer classes, especially if you're going to graduate in summer but you're walking in May and you've got to sign up for those classes, go do that, because they will not let you walk if you haven't at least signed up for what you need. But if you're taking classes summer and fall, go see your advisor. I've seen a lot of bad things in my whole time at Southside, but this semester especially, people just, they thought they were going to graduate or they thought they were taking the right things, and because they basically advised themselves, it went horribly, horribly wrong. And I hate, as an advisor, having to tell somebody, I know you thought you were graduating, but you're not, because you didn't make sure with your advisor that you were taking the right thing. Just on my little soapbox here, folks. Go see your advisor. Don't do it by yourself. Okay? I think that's it. I'm going to stop rambling now. And hope you have a great week. Our topic for this coming week is really good. It's just happiness. It's probably the easiest chapter in the whole book. So I hope you enjoy it. And let me know if you need me.